Hello friends, Sally the Seeker here. This is for my Sarah Boone peeps. If you also watch my Darrell videos, and even if you don't, I just want to let you know I'm sorry. I'm behind on answering comments, but as I said in my other video, the last Darrell Brooks video, I am out now for the summer from school, so hopefully at least during the summer I'll be able to get more videos out and respond to comments quicker, because I really do love your comments. Sorry, I'm just trying to get this adjusted. So, but I wanted to share a little something before I do that. One more video. It's nothing really anything new, but it was kind of an interesting show that Court TV, and that's Vinnie Politan, he cracks me up during this thing. You know, they're talking about the case against Sarah Boone, and I mean, he makes me laugh because, sorry, I'm still trying to he does not hold back, and he doesn't say it, but it's like, to me, he definitely feels like, well, these are my words. Sarah is crazy as a sprayed cockroach, and Vinnie, in so many words, says that. So I'm going to play you different clips of it that I think are interesting, but definitely go to Court TV and check it out. It's called the Case Against Sarah Boone, I believe. And it's really good, but I was just trying to give you some of the highlights to share with you that you might find interesting. So at the beginning, he's talking about how multiple crimes have been committed where the bodies have been found in suitcases. And he has this one, he's talking about Melanie McGuire. I was not really aware of this case, maybe a little bit, but now it looks pretty interesting. But this was back a while, some years back. But I believe she was from what he was saying, she was a fertility nurse that worked for a fertility doctor, and they got romantically involved. And interestingly enough, her husband, Bill, disappeared sometime later. I guess she had, I'm going to say dismantled Bill. I guess you could say that. Let's face it, chopped him up, dismembered him. And his body parts were found in multiple suitcases. And I think she is still in prison right now for that. But, there are multiple cases where people are found in suitcases. Of course, most recently and very sadly, Gannon and the Letitia Stout murder, where she had put him in a suitcase. But I guess what Vinny's trying to say is this suitcase case is a little different than all the others, because I guess they haven't heard anything like this. But of course, we are talking about Sarah Boone. So I'll let Vinny take it over from here. Take it from here, Vinny.
Involving Sarah Boone and George Torres is a much different case, a much different suitcase case. Here, the suitcase is not used to dispose of the victim. The suitcase is the instrument of death. The suitcase is what is used to commit this murder, according to prosecutors. We've never, ever seen a case like this. First time. And there's a lot of questions surrounding this, obviously, like how and why did George Torres end up in that suitcase? What was going on in that house? How did he end up in there? And he can't tell us because he's dead. She has given many statements. But the part of this investigation that turned everything upside down, well, she had her story about what was happening that night. We're playing hide and seek, and she helped him get in the suitcase. Well, that's not how hide and seek works, first of all. It doesn't work that way. You close your eyes, someone hides, you got to find them. You don't help them hide. So from the beginning, that just sounded ridiculous. But she recorded him on her cell phone. She recorded video of him pleading for his life. And tonight, we're going to show you the whole video. show you the whole thing that investigators got from her cell phone pretty quickly, as a matter of fact. Now, I'm going to warn you. We're going to show it to you, but this is not easy to watch because you know eventually this man dies inside that suitcase. But you'll hear his voice, you'll hear her voice as she's talking to him, and she sounds obviously under the influence of something. She claims they'd been drinking wine that night. I don't know what to believe out of her mouth. But again, I'm going to warn you, this is not easy to watch. If there's young kids in the room, probably want to get them out at this point. And if you don't want to see it, I can understand. You can turn down the volume, turn away for a few minutes. Because she rolled on it. Not for like 10 seconds, not for like 15, like 2 minutes of video. More than 2 minutes of video. Now, what you have to think about as you're watching this video is that this is just what she recorded. He was in there for hours and hours, all night long. How much did he suffer? What was he thinking? How much was he fighting to try to get out of the suitcase? And what's going through his mind knowing that there's someone outside who could easily unzip the suitcase and let him out? So again, I'm going to play the video for you now. I've given you the warning. George Torres is inside this suitcase. Sarah Boone, the defendant, has the cell phone in her hand and is recording it and is talking/taunting him while he is begging and pleading for her to just unzip the suitcase. Let's watch.
Okay, I'm going to stop it here because I've seen it multiple times. You all have probably seen it multiple times. And again, you can go to this, which I would recommend getting the whole story. I just wanted to get parts of it and watch it. But, you know, it's showing the same thing. First, there he is. And she records. The first recording is for about 2 minutes. And, of course, she's taunting him. So you even... I don't even, it shows the time up there. Anyhow, it's about a little over 2 minutes. And then 11 minutes later, what they'll show is the suitcase is flipped over. She's flipped it over. And I mean, she told the police that. And then, so that's 11 minutes later. And she's recording him. And, you know, as Vinnie describes, his voice is, he's not speaking as much. So he is probably in a bit of distress, and he gets on a medical examiner to explain what happens. I'll go ahead and show you that part, because if you think about it, I didn't think about this before, but logically, if you climb into a suitcase, well, I haven't climbed in any, and I probably won't, but it's not airtight. So a great question that Vinnie asked was, how could he still suffocate? Well, it's because, and I'll let the professional explain. She called it, she's a forensic and medical examiner, retired, and forensic pathologist. And she says it's called positional asphyxiation. In other words, the problem was because of the position he was in, he wasn't straight out, he was kind of like compressed. His lungs weren't able to expand like they should be normally. So I guess it's something similar, as she said, to like drowning or being buried alive, which sounds even worse than maybe what we imagine, right? So I'm going to go ahead and try to fast forward to that part.
This case back in 2020, it was, how do you get in the suitcase? But also, why did he die? How would he die? And what would that be like to be locked in a suitcase like that? We've got a special guest who's going to help us work through some of this. Joining us tonight, Columbia, South Carolina, retired medical examiner and forensic pathologist, Dr. Michelle Dupree is back with us. Dr. Dupree, great to see you tonight. A lot of people are surprised that you would die locked in the suitcase. What is it that's going on inside there? And I guess most people like me, assume that it's not airtight, that you would perhaps be able to breathe and be able to sustain yourself. He was in there for hours, I mean, overnight. So describe for us a little bit about what would happen to someone that is locked up and zipped into this suitcase.
Well, really, Vinny, it's more than a lack of air. It's called positional asphyxia. And because of the position that his body would be in that cramped, small space, your lungs and your chest cannot expand as they need to catch a deep breath. And so you actually die from asphyxiation or from suffocating because your lungs and your chest cannot expand.
Sorry, guys, I'm fooling around with stuff here.
When people are in positions that they're unable to move about freely, it happens really more than you would think.
So, what is going, for a man who's in that position, like George was, at what point, how long would it take, do you think, for him to realize this is bad? This is going south. I'm starting to struggle here. And how long would that struggle last, do you think?
And that's going to vary on how anxious that person is. I would say 10, 15 minutes, you're going to become very distressed. It's going to become terrifying that you can't get out and you know that you can't breathe. You would be scared to death because you can't move, you cannot breathe and take a deep breath.
I am almost saying this is almost like, is it kind of like drowning, the psychological part of it, where you're there but you can't breathe. If you're underwater, you can't breathe, and then your mind starts racing and you get into that panic mode.
Vinny, that's actually a very good analogy. Yes, I would imagine it would be something like that, or like being buried alive. It would be horrifying. It must just be terrifying to be in that position.
So let's look at how this all developed. She doesn't open the suitcase till the next morning. Would there be any way for them to tell at what point he could have been saved and at one point it was too late?
I think it would be they would be able to estimate the time of death at approximately how long he was in the suitcase before he died and about when he died. And so from that, you could then figure out, if he had been let out at a certain time, he would have survived. But they would have to do that based on a number of factors like the liquidity in his body, his temperature, and things like that.
And what sort of examination would you do for the autopsy in this case? And would there be anything you'd look for to perhaps ascertain anything that may have happened before he got into the suitcase? Like, because we're also trying to figure out how he got in there, whether it was voluntarily or something else happened here.
Well, yes, you would certainly look for any signs of a struggle. Did he have any other injuries on his body, any defensive wounds? Had he been in a scuffle or a struggle before he got into the suitcase or was put into the suitcase? You would look for all sorts of things like that. You would also look at any type of information you would get from the autopsy itself, such as toxicology. How much of another substance did he have in his body that he may have been obtunded in some way.
And how would all of that affect, let's say, for instance, I don't know if he was drinking wine or if they were doing anything else, would that make things less painful? Would it be less torture? I'm just trying to look for some silver lining here, that this wasn't the most excruciating death for George Torres.
I think that it would still be very frightening. If he was under the influence of some type of central nervous system depressant like alcohol, then that would only add to the problem of him having a difficulty time in breathing. But I don't think it would make it any easier for him. He would still be terrified.
And through the autopsy, would you be able to ascertain the position of his body as he was inside the suitcase? Because I think she opened it before investigators got there. There's probably no photographic evidence of that. Would there be any way to figure that out?
Yes, again, depending on how long he was in the suitcase, and I believe it was around 11 hours or so, there would be rigor mortis,
Too
which is
long.
the stiffening of the muscles, and they would be stiffened and basically in place in the position that he was in. There would also be lever mortis, which is the settling of blood according to gravity, and then that way we would know, when he was facing downward or facing upward, based on the lividity.
Dr. Michelle Dupree, so happy to have you with us tonight, giving us a little bit of insight into this horrific, horrific case. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Vinnie.
All right, when we come back, we're going to see a lot of Sarah Boone. She spoke and she spoke and she spoke. 911 call after the fact, obviously. Body cam video, interrogation video, all of that coming up this hour, plus coming up next hour.
I think here they're going through her 911 call. And if I get in the middle of it, we've heard this before.
She fell asleep. She has no idea what happened. Unbelievable, right? So police respond, and we're down in Florida. Police have body cameras.
I'm sorry, Vinnie cracks me up. He's like,
let's listen to more of Sarah.
I think
Boone.
he's,
Again, this is
he thinks she's as cuckoo as we all.
About her boyfriend George, who, I don't know, somehow died in a suitcase.
We have a puzzle that we started in there. Okay. We've been doing art, trying to take stuff off the wall to make new art put up there, like having a good time with one another. But we're drinking, we had a bottle of wine last night. Okay. So then it's like, we decided to play hide and seek, right? Okay. So he gets in the suitcase. Okay. Who is this guy? That's my ex-husband, my former husband.
It's another interesting story. Ex-husband.
I called him over here. Okay. Okay. I didn't know what to do. Okay. I didn't know what to do. Okay.
That's what I also find interesting is the first person she called. No, that's not a very good shot of her. Well, I don't think we're going to get any very good shots of her. But she called her ex-husband. And I did find an interview of him. I don't know if y'all saw it or not, but he seems like he's very well. Seems like he has a, what am I trying to say? He's even-tempered. It seems like he doesn't seem like he's insane, but apparently he is her go-to person. And I do remember them talking about they shared a son, Lucas, who I believe at that time of the suitcase situation, that's been, 3 years ago? So I think he was like 8 or 9. So by now he's probably like 11 or 12. Definitely old enough to know better or know enough. I'm just curious, this is just on a side note, what the dynamics are with him, the son Lucas, and Sarah. I know that, if y'all recall, I don't know, but her ex-husband, the father of Lucas, their shared son, was trying to contact her because it was her day to pick him up. But of course she wasn't answering because she was too busy resting comfortably after she zipped George in the suitcase. And so, but then she called him, of course, before 911, and he's the one who said, call 911. And he may have suggested she give CPR. But anyhow, there's going to be a psychologist on a little bit later who's going to explain that dynamic, because that is an interesting dynamic. I'm just curious to know if her son visits her. I don't know. That's just me thinking. But okay, let's go on with this.
So then he came over here. Here, let's talk in private, okay? I called you guys. I tried giving you CPR. The problem is I fell asleep.
She fell asleep.
When did you do
She fell asleep.
This morning. When I found it. Before you called? Yes. 1 o'clock right now. I tried. I was awake. But
I love it. Even the police officer was like, even though she's very good, I watched the whole, if y'all watch it, she worked very well with Sarah, but she's like, it's 1 o'clock right now. Like, they're all probably going, what a hot mess she is.
I actually got out of the bed at like 12:30, whatever. So I came downstairs, and I was like, oh, he's in the suitcase still. And that's when I found him, and I took him out, and tried doing CPR, and then I called him, and then I called you guys. Did he get here before the fire department got here? Who? Your husband? Or your ex-husband? Yes. Okay. Where did you live at? Right down the street. Okay. So you were playing, and who victim of this? I did, but then I fell asleep.
She fell asleep.
You're okay. I wasn't here. I'm just
Look at her face. Oh God.
They suffocated her. Like,
What a fruitcake.
or a heart attack or what? What kind of medical conditions does he have? None that I know of. Nothing that you know of. None that I know of. No. All we had was a bottle of wine. Literally, just a bottle of wine. Okay.
Sure, sir.
Artwork. Then we decided to play hide and seek. That's all that happened.
She's a mess. An absolute mess. All right, let's...
Okay, that right there cracked me up when he goes, she's a mess. An absolute mess. I just died laughing. I mean, he's saying exactly what we're thinking, but he just says it even better than we do. Okay, here we go.
Bringing our guest. Joining us tonight in New York City, nationally known psychotherapist, host of Talking Live and the Bite Size Podcast, Dr. Robbie Ludwig is with us. Also joining us tonight from Salt Lake City, Utah, religious cult expert, retired police commander, host of the Profiling Evil podcast, and the author of the book Deceived.
Ooh.
Mike King is with us. All right, Dr. Robbie, let me start here. There's a lot of places you can go with this, but she wakes up, right? Finds him dead in the suitcase. Oh, he's still in the suitcase, right? Oh, he's dead. Calls her ex-husband. That's the first calls to her ex-husband. What's going on here?
Well, I mean, it sounds like this woman was clearly in a panic and did not, I think, was playing dangerous games, but did not imagine things would end up the way they did. And perhaps her ex-husband is like her best friend, somebody she turns to automatically when she's in a troubled state. So that's what I make out of it, that she called her ex-husband because he was her, or is her, support system, and she was traumatized by the events, even though she set them in motion.
Yeah, she clearly set them in motion. Mike, what do we think about this hide and seek game? I don't understand that. I know how to play hide and seek. The rules are pretty simple. One person closes their eyes or turns their head, and the other person or people, they then go hide somewhere. Like, he cannot zip the suitcase up himself to hide. You cannot do that, because if he could zip it up, then he could unzip it, and he couldn't.
Exactly, and this may be more. Let's do a magician's trick, and you climb in this secret box. But all of a sudden, what's so important here is that once this guy is in the bag, once he's zipped up, all of a sudden something seems to trigger. At least when you're listening to that video, Vinny, because all of a sudden we see this incredible surge of power, dominion, control that she has over someone that may have abused her. There's evidence that suggests that there's been domestic violence in the past, but all of a sudden she's in control and she's relishing in it. Now, whether she remembers it or not, I'm still scratching my head over the keeping of that video. But the secret to me in this whole thing, you talked about it early on, is how many times do we find dead bodies in suitcases?
I don't mean to laugh, but
get near a suitcase, whether it's that poor little Gannon Stout that got stuffed in a suitcase,
yes,
the Long Island serial killer victims that were found in suitcases, a woman in Houston, Seattle, Arizona. It just goes on and on.
Yeah, this is the first time, though, we've seen the suitcase as the instrument of death, right? As the
wow,
it's unreal. Let's take a look at.
Agreed, and I can't imagine somebody actually going through with that game and hide and seek baloney. Somehow that was a truth or dare moment, and then all of a sudden there was power and control.
Yeah, and no mercy, and no compassion, and none of that. It's like unreal. Here she is now. Again, this is the morning after. It's actually the morning. She slept till like 1 o'clock, so it's like the following afternoon because she finally woke up on police body cam talking about whether or not she gave CPR.
I just totally forgot.
You began to do CPR on him?
Yes.
About what time this morning did you start doing that CPR?
No, it was the afternoon. It was afternoon because I was awake. But then I finally decided to come downstairs at like 12:30-ish, whatever it is. And I was like, do I forgot he was in the suitcase? And he wasn't moving. Nothing was happening. So I unzipped it, took him out and started doing CPR on him. He was on his way over here. I called you when he got here.
Once he got here, you called us?
Yes.
Okay.
And air was coming out, and he was gurgling, but I could just tell by looking at him.
But you knew how to do CPR crazy. Are you doing that on your own?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the person that was on the phone with me also, I counted with him doing it.
And he's got no medical. He doesn't take any
I
medication.
don't know. Like, I don't know medical wise. Like, what I know he doesn't take any medications whatsoever. The only thing, like I said, I don't know if alcohol had to do with it, but we had a bottle of wine.
Okay. All right.
All right, Dr. Robbie, what are you seeing and hearing when you hear her the afternoon after versus during the actual event, during the video, while he is stuck in there pleading for his life, asking her just unzip it? What are you seeing and noticing in comparing those two Sarah Boones?
Yeah. Well, Sarah Boone definitely, after the fact, is really traumatized, clearly, and it sounds like she is in a state of almost disbelief as to what happened. The night before, what I imagined was there was some fight. These two have a very violent history with each other, and she got him in a suitcase and enjoyed kind of getting him back, that she was retaliating for something she felt he had done to her, and I really don't think she really got the full understanding of what she was doing to this man. Either she was drunk and drinking and didn't get it, or thought she was going to teach him a lesson and he would be fine. I don't think she imagined that he would end up dead, but she enjoyed teaching him a lesson, but it turned out to be a lethal lesson, which seemed to surprise her as well.
All right, here's more of the police body cam, and here they're talking about George's family and what's going to happen. What are they going to be told? What are they going to think of her? Let's watch.
So, like, do you guys tell his family, like, today or after tomorrow?
We have to.
It's the law.
Once our investigation is pretty much complete here, once we leave here, we will be going to...
But again, you'll know. I'm not going to just go and do it without you knowing. You'll know. We'll talk to you prior to doing anything like that.
But I understand what you guys and how you do it, you know. So, but, like, what do you just tell him? What do you tell his parents? Like, what's the reason as to why?
We tell them what we know at that point.
Yeah.
We tell them the truth.
You zipped him in a suitcase.
We're going to be waiting for the autopsy results, and I will be at the autopsy in the morning, and hopefully the doctor will be able to give me some of what they think and see.
We'll give them their number. They can contact them and get it, you know.
But yeah, they're gonna know what we're here, what we're investigating, and that
They're gonna think I killed him.
Why would they?
They always have said that. They've always have said that.
Yes, it's always deflecting like Darrell. And also, she's worried about herself. She doesn't seem to be at all sad about George dying.
Not really been around his family because he chooses me over them. Even after I've encouraged him numerous
Guess that was
times
a
to
mistake.
see his family.
You know what I'm not seeing, Mike? She does not seem that broken up about the death of George. I mean, she's worried, what are they going to think of me? I'm the white dragon, blah, blah, blah. But not really, like, broken up. That
Vinnie
a
is
man
nailing
just
it.
died in her home. A man that was supposedly her boyfriend, whatever was going on in the relation, he died there.
Exactly. And this is the thing that I always like to look for when I spoke to people in these kinds of situations. I'm so glad Dr. Ludwig's on with us, because here's the thing. Not once did I hear, oh my goodness, what happened to Jorge? Oh, I feel so horrible about Jorge dying. Oh my goodness, we need to make sure his family knows what happened. It's all, no, how's this going to impact me? And by the way, police, I'm the one who tried to help him get better. And so there's this kind of fixing that's going on. When we were kids, we called it do-overs, but there's no do-over on a homicide.
No way. All right, Dr. Robbie Ludwig, Mike King staying with us. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the interrogation video. What story does she tell in the interrogation room? That's next.
Well, there you go. The same thing we're all wondering. Where is her remorse for him? I'm not seeing anything. It's all about her, but then also she has to keep telling them how wonderful she is. Well, I mean, none of us are very excited about that. Let's see, with the interrogation part, I kind of want to get to, well, let me see. You know, the discomfort of her not wanting to watch the video. I can't believe that she didn't remember, but to have turned it over to the police like that. What I'm wanting to try to do is, because there's kind of thinking of, they're talking about how they think it's going to go for her in court using the battered spouse.
All right, let's bring back in our guests. Mike King with us. All right, Dr. Robbie, she didn't want to watch that video. Well, first she denied it existed, then she didn't want to watch it.
I think we see, as Mike pointed out, some of the narcissistic grandiosity. She's so important. She was helping him. She's somehow misunderstood by her boyfriend's family. You know, we're seeing all of this distortion in the way that she experiences herself in relation to others. She also doesn't take responsibility for her own feelings and for the reality of what was really going on. She is still covering up for what the real story is, and we don't know what her level of insight is. Apparently here it's pretty shallow, and she's just wanting to feel sorry for herself and explain away why this happened and why she's not responsible. She's in survival mode.
Mike King, as I watch her, I mean, this is, you know, some interrogations are a little more difficult than others. This one seems rather easy because, I mean, she's answering questions, she's staying there, and it's like she's laying the case out for prosecutors with all these lies and denials that, you know, instantly investigators are able to impeach her.
Exactly, and the thing that's so powerful here is that there's physical evidence, there's forensic evidence on the phone and other that I'm sure they pulled into this thing. And the thing that I found so intriguing in her testimony is this idea that she doesn't even remember that this video was taken. She doesn't even remember what was happening. And yet there's some indication. Her immediate response was, hey, I don't want to watch this. I'm going to throw up if I have to watch this. So she does know, but she puts on this guise, or in reality, she can't remember. I think she would have tried to destroy the video if she really would have remembered it. And if she is that out of it after a little bit of wine, it really makes me wonder what's going on and what's happening in their other toxicology there. And I wonder if they got some blood tests on her even the next day as they did this. The other thing is, this idea that she did CPR, somehow unpacking this guy, just like Michelle, the medical examiner, was talking about, when rigor mortis sets in, it's pretty hard to break all of that free. And that's kind of a pretty blunt assessment. But to do CPR, certainly turning a body over or something, you're going to hear some gurgles and some things. There was no indication there was life there. And all of that, I think the medical examiner is going to be able to show that this guy was probably dead for some time.
So, Dr. Robbie, what do you think? Why did she make the video? Why at that moment did she pull out the cell phone and start recording?
Oh, I think this is all part of this sadistic game that maybe the two of them would engage in. Again, it was a power trip. She was in charge, and I think she got off on the fact that her boyfriend was begging for her forgiveness, was in a difficult, lethal position, and that she was in charge. And so I think that there was some sadistic gratification, some poor judgment there that, who knows, maybe she looked at it afterwards and enjoyed seeing what was going on over and over again, and it went into her denial file. But
let me ask you, Dr. Robbie, I want one little follow-up on that. I hate interrupting you, but before I forget, because I do forget, did she make that video, like, let's presume that she maybe didn't intend for him to die. She thought he's going to survive for her. Do you think she made the video to show him later, or just to enjoy herself?
Maybe a combination of both. Because when you think about showing that kind of video to somebody else, it's inducing kind of a humiliation. Look what I did to you. Look how powerless you were. You might have felt grand when you were doing whatever to me, but now look at you. Look what I did to you. I put you in your place.
Okay, we know what her defense is going to be at trial. When we come back, we're going to talk about that. But now we know what her defense will be. Like, how do you defend having your boyfriend zipped up in a suitcase? He's begging for his life. You're recording on video, and you do nothing, and then you go upstairs and go to sleep, wake up 12 hours later, right? And then call your ex-husband. Weird. Like, how do you defend that? Well, here we go. Our friends at Fox 35 down in Orlando reporting that the defense attorney representing Sarah Boone, a Florida woman, charged with second-degree murder after her boyfriend died inside a suitcase in 2020, said he plans to use a battered spouse defense when her case goes to trial, which is expected to happen this summer. Battered spouse, well, they weren't married, but it's the same defense, right? Battered spouse defense. So, let's bring back in our guest, Dr. Robbie Ludwig, Mike King. All right, Dr. Robbie Ludwig, what are your thoughts about battered spouse defense in this case, based on what she's saying in this interrogation, that he's changed, I love him, all of that, she's crying. What's going on here?
She didn't seem afraid of him. That's the only problem when I think about
good point.
Battered spouse defense. You know, that they're, you know, those battered wives or husbands, they are so afraid and traumatized. They can tell when their partner is about to harm them, or they always feel in danger and then try to figure out a way to escape. And sometimes that leads to death because it's a situation like a war. It's either you or me. We're not seeing that here. You know, we're seeing something very, very different. So it's an interesting defense. I don't know if it's something I would choose if I were a defense attorney, but I'm not a defense attorney. So
yeah, well, I don't know what else she has. This is I don't know what the defense could be, but Mike King, in investigating this relationship and what actually happened that night, I haven't seen or heard anything from the body cam footage, from the 911 call, or this interrogation that would lead me to believe that she was a battered spouse and was defending herself in some way in all of this.
That's really the key, isn't it, Vinny, is the fact that there's not this precipitating event that causes her to then react and do something. Even if it's after the guy falls asleep and she's been assaulted during the day or something. That's usually where we see these kinds of cases kind of build up the reasoning behind it. And they're going to have to get a jury to buy off on the fact that she was responding when she took this video. When 11 minutes later she continued it and continued to torment and taunt, and then she's going to have to face the fact that she'd been going over this over and over again in other domestic battery incidents where she was at times the predator and where he was the predator. But I'm going right back to where you are. There's got to be a precipitating event that led up to that. And it may be that they have to prove that precipitating event happened over months and months or years and years. But boy, it's going to be hard to get a jury to buy off that happened just before and she hung around all night.
Yeah, and the jury is going to see the video that we showed at the top of the show, and they're going to hear what she was saying, Dr. Robbie. So in the voice and the way she's speaking, again, I don't hear a victim. I hear someone who's like spiteful and angry. You were cheating on me, etc. That sort of stuff. Not someone who's been completely traumatized and victimized, but maybe I'm reading it wrong. I don't know.
I mean, she might have felt victimized by his cheating, and they probably had a very unhealthy, mutually abusive relationship. I think really the better defense is that she didn't believe she was going to kill him. It wasn't deliberate. It wasn't planned. It wasn't first degree. But because of whatever her limitations are and whatever was going on in the relationship, she was somehow in gross denial, and this was an unfortunate event, which she understands. I mean, I think that's kind of the best we can hope for, because I think that's more close to reality of what happened here with Sarah.
Yeah, well, the case is scheduled to go this summer. It's been scheduled many times, and our viewers know that. And every time it's scheduled, it seems to get pushed. She's fired like 5 attorneys already. She always seems to have a problem with the people who are representing her, but right now it is scheduled for this summer, so we will stay on top of it. Dr. Robbie Ludwig, Mike King, thank you both so much. Great to see you tonight. Appreciate all your help. 2020.
And there we go. So this should be interesting. But I like what the psychologist said. You know, usually battered spouses are scared. There was nothing scared about how she acted. You know, they do usually sneakily try to do things, but I mean, she out and out did it. She, you know, she was very ballsy. Let's just put it that way. But that's Sarah. Well, I hope you found that interesting. And like I said, there are parts in it, you know, that I did not show. So I would suggest going back. The whole thing is really very good, but I just wanted to share some of what I thought were the highlights with you all. And so I'll get this out, and then I will be reading your comments, which I look forward to. Again, apologize for it being late, but better late than never. And hope you all are doing well. Have a wonderful day. Or evening whenever I get this out. I love you. Be kind to one another. Be kind to you. See you the next time.